Hi, it's Amelie and welcome to Just Practicing. Today we're going to do the fifth fantasy of Telemann that I have recorded and also edited. It's on our website musogy.com, musogy.com, if you want to get it. And so, yeah, we're going to get through that piece. In my edition, you have all my articulations and dynamics that I added, and also some ornaments, because in Baroque music, composers didn't really put those things. So if you get a version that doesn't have them, you have to add your own, or you can listen to different versions and choose your own, be inspired by other musicians. Yeah, so let's do this. So one little second, I'll just play a little couple of notes. Okay, so this is in C major. So you always have that C, and the top note moves. I'll just play it once so you can hear the presto. Okay, so what you can do is to start with the melody, the notes that are on the beats, E, F, G, like that. Okay, that's like the frame, and then you add the other notes that are kind of just adding on. Okay, so you'll need double tonguing to do that, and because you start on an upbeat, you start on the last 8th note of the measure on an anacrusis. I would say start with Ka, so that your Ta is on a strong beat. So on C you do Ka, and on E you do Ta, and then you just alternate like that, taka, 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 taka. So even if you do it slowly, start doing it with a double tonguing so that you get used to it. Make sure that you don't emphasize the C too much, so that it doesn't sound like this. You know, it's a top note that you want to emphasize, and the low note is just there like a pedal. So I'll do that again. Okay, and a good way to practice it as well is to do it slurred and try not to move too much, because you don't have time, and if you start moving on each note, you'll lose notes, you know, and you'll overwork for nothing. So and obviously start slowly when you learn it and take your time to get faster. Then you have a largo, 3-2, so 3 beats of half notes. So let's say we do it without the ornaments at first. I'll put the metronome at 52. Okay, now once that's comfortable, you can even start counting it per quarter note, and then when you get comfortable, you feel it per half note. That's totally fine, because it's good to subdivide, you know, to be precise. So then you can add the ornaments, the little the little grace notes, I mean, they're on the beat. It's da-da-da. It's not before the beat. It's not. Or it could be, but I think it's more like this. Okay, more like that. Then you have a presto again. It's basically the same thing that you had in the beginning in C. Now you do it in G. It's just transposed at the dominant, on the dominant chord. So not that easy. I'll do it slurred once. I'll do it slurred by 2 like this. I think that's a good way to practice it because it makes the good note, the important note stick out. It's a good way to practice it. Let's do it again. Now I'll play it as written. Nice. Sometimes I like to use my tuner as well, and sometimes I just use it like that and I leave it there and I check once in a while just to see just to remind myself of the tendencies, you know, make sure I'm not too flat in the low register or anything like that. So but sometimes I like also to use, I have a feature on it that's like, it plays a drone. So let's say here, I make it play a G, and then I try to, you know, use my ear, make it sound good. So like you can even try to make it sound out of tune. You can go. Then you try to find the center, you know, even with the. You can try to find what you feel that sounds in tune and sounds good. And so that's a good little exercise to do. So now we go back to dolce, like largo, same thing we had before. You'll notice if you have my own version that I added some ornaments at measure 19 and 20 and so on. It's an asaya. You don't have to do it. You can play what Telemann wrote, or you can play the little additions that I added on there. So let's go from the dolce again. Let's do it at 50. 2, 3. You see here at measure 14, 15, 16, 17. I feel like that D goes with the next measure. So I go ta bom. Make it sound like it goes together. Try to figure out like how you want to phrase that, where the phrases go. You know, sing it, play it, all those things. Okay, so I'll do that again. And you notice that it's pretty much the same thing as the first largo. That was in C, now it's in G. You know, same thing. He kind of does it in C, then does it in G. Yeah, it's pretty much that. But I would advise you to start to make sure that things are clear. Let's say you play that 80 per quarter note at first. So you could start like that when you play it. You start with metronome per quarter note, and you don't do the ornaments. You just do the main notes. You don't do the all the grace notes and everything. And then once you're comfortable with that, you add them, and then so on and so on. And another thing that you can do when you do subdivide, let's say you put it per quarter note. That can be your subdivision, but in your body you feel it like 1 and 2 and 3 and dum ba dum da 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 dum. So that's a way that you can work on it, so that you can still feel that 3 thing, but it's precise, and you hear the subdivisions when you're playing it. Okay, that's good. Any question in the live? No? So we're live. You can ask questions. You can say hi. Okay, so now the Allegro. The Allegro, it's a 9/8. So 3 beats of dotted quarter notes. It's a compound measure. So if you're not comfortable with compound measures, start by thinking it as 9/8 notes. Play it like that, and then start grouping them by 3 when you're more comfortable. So you get 3 beats of dotted quarter. Okay. So we're in C major again, and let's play that. Let's do it with the metronome, not too fast. I'll go through it once. Let's start at 80. Obviously, I've learned that before. You know, if you've never learned it, you'll want to start slower. Also, you might not want to learn all of it at once. You might want to start with one movement and then the second. And even when you learn one movement, maybe you don't want to learn the whole movement at once. Maybe you start with 3 lines. Then once you're comfortable with those 3 lines, you continue with 3 more lines, so that you don't learn mistakes. And then you have to unlearn the mistakes and learn the right notes, you know, just to make sure you learn. You take your time so that it's solid. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oops, sorry. Okay, so in all those fantasies, 1 second, sorry. There's this thing, you know, that there's big intervals. You can almost use that as a sound exercise, you know, to work on big intervals. I don't like to call it flexibility because that makes it sound like you have to work like stretch or something. There's no stretch physically in that, you know. You don't want to have to move too much to get from one note to the other, because then you wouldn't have time, because sometimes it's fast. But I think it could be interesting to practice it slurred. Let's do like a couple of lines like that. And you'll notice that I try not to vibrate too much because it's Baroque music and it's not romantic music. So we don't vibrate too much in like, it's not like, you know, not like that. So more to try to emulate a little bit what the period instruments were doing. But let's do it a bit like a sound exercise. You see here, the notes that are on the beat, they're the low notes. So you want those notes to sound more and the high notes to be a bit like a resonance of those. You don't want this. No. You want the other way around. You see, when you practice like that, you need more air, and I'm playing it slower too, so I don't worry too much about where I breathe right now, because it's not where I'm gonna breathe if I play it not slurred, which takes less air, and faster, which also takes like, I can play more notes before I have to breathe. That's good, because I was feeling what's happening, you know. There's a slight movement when I go low and high here, but there's also here the way I blow in my belly, like I don't use the if you put your hand on your belly and you sing a low note, and then you go high, you'll feel that the muscles are moving, and it's not exactly the same ones. And if you do the opposite, you go from high to low, you'll feel also the opposite going on in your belly. That's very helpful when you want to switch octave, because that changes the speed of air, and that's very efficient, more than moving too much with the embouchure. There's a little bit, but it's very slight, it's very little. And it's not like I'm really thinking about it, it just happens. But okay, where was I? Let's say I'll start at 21 and I'll do all slurred, because I think it's good for my sound too. See here, I go, and I make a little bit more space in the back of my mouth. I open I go from or. Sometimes you can use the vowels and change the vowels. Okay, now I'll play the whole thing. I'll try that speed. I think I forgot to say, but you'll need triple tonguing in there. Now, sometimes when I talk about triple tonguing, I see some people get a bit stressed because they're like, what is that? It's basically double tonguing. It's the same thing. It's taka, but instead of doing taka taka, you do taka ta taka ta taka ta. You just group it in three. So you have three notes. The ka is in the middle. Taka ta. Repeat taka ta. So taka ta taka ta taka ta ta. Because it's a bit fast, so I personally use triple tonguing. So I'll go back from measure 7. So here I go ta 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 ta. I didn't sing the right notes, but you get it. From measure 7 again. Sorry. Sorry, I'll go back from there. That's fun. I really like these because it's short, but you have everything. You have more expressive, slow, and you have fast, and you have a little bit of technical challenge, but also musicality wise there. It's very rich, I think, those fantasies. Okay, I guess I'm not the only one to think that, because it's one of the big canons of our repertoire, of our flute repertoire. Okay. So we're still in a compound measure, 6/8. This one I feel it a bit slower, but you know, there was no metronome back then, so they'd write allegro, and metronomes didn't exist in that time, so it's all a question of interpretation. And because I added a lot of ornaments on the repeat, I have to have time to play those. Okay. So I'll play it once. You know, it's a bit like that Sicilian rhythm. Ta ta da ta ta da ta ta da ta ta da ta. I guess that's what's making me feel it a bit like that. Yeah. So sometimes like maybe I'm playing it a bit slow for an allegro, but then I'm like, yeah, but it's a little bit like a Sicilian rhythm. So anyways, you know, you make your choices and then you play it and that's it, and you can play it again differently another time. So let's do this. I'll do it with the metronome so you can hear where the beats are. So obviously you could start by thinking of it like subdividing each 8 note like this. I'll play the beginning like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty much always the same types of rhythm. So that's when you 1 and 2 and but even when you play it, let's say here a bit, let's say 1 and then 2 and then 1 and then 2, and then you still have to subdivide it in 3 each beat, you know. Repeat with the ornaments. Okay, that's a nice speed. Sometimes I play it slower. It all depends. So now, second part. No. Back a little bit. Pretty much it. Also, I forgot to say, but usually in Baroque music, when you do a trill, you start with the top note. So let's say you have a trill on D. The trill is D, E. You'll start on E. So you won't play, you'll play, you know, let's say at measure 21. You know, it goes, not, no, not like that, but that here it's very fast. I would think it wouldn't be the biggest deal. When it's a long note that's like especially close to it would be even more important to do it like that. Sometimes when I just add a repeat, I just add a little bloop. Sometimes it's just do, and that's okay. But when they're a bit longer trills, it's better to do it like that. When you have the little zigzag, that's a mordant. You just do one, throw it up. And when you have a mordant, the same zigzag but with a line in it, it's a mordant but under. So let's say like the last note, I added a mordant on the last note on the repeat. And so you do the C, and then instead of doing C, D, C, you do C, B, C, you go under. So if I do from 35 repeat, like with the Asaya, like that. But as I said before, when you learn it, start with just the notes, basic notes. Slowly, you can subdivide. Subdivisions it's great to practice subdividing. Then you group. When you're comfortable, you can add the ornaments, and then when you're comfortable with that, you can add the asayas, so that when you play the second time, you have a different way. So that's pretty much it. Anyone had questions about that?
Some people were wondering, like, what's your favorite scales? And that's it.
My favorite scales? I like switching them around. I like playing scales. Right now I'm writing a technique book that will have a couple of different scales. It's going to have 2 octave scales, arpeggio scales and thirds. Then I have also the ones that are, like, let's say you do G major 2 octaves, just like this. Then you do the arpeggio. And then maybe you want to do the scale in third. Okay, but you can also do the whole extent of the flute register. So you'd start from G, you go all the way to B, you go all the way back to low C, and you go back to that G. I'll show you. And same thing with the arpeggio. So I really like those because they work on the whole register. So that's nice. And also I like the EJ4 in Tafanel Goba. And I also like EJ1 I mean the first exercise in Reichert, like this one. Let's say I do and you even finish with the arpeggio. I like it because it's melodic. So, but I like switching it around, and with my students, I tend to make them practice a certain type of scale for a while. Then we don't want to get too bored with it. We change, and then we go back to it, and I like alternating like that because it's fun to keep it interesting. So yes, I'm working on a technique book with a lot of different exercises, and it should come out pretty soon, I think. And maybe we'll do some just practicing so we can all do technique together.
Flamingo wants to know, do you have tips for maximizing flute tone quality?
Okay, tone quality on the flute. So first thing is that what builds your sound is the air. So no air, no sound. So that's like super important to breathe and to have the way you blow, that it's constant, you know, and it's like there's a lot of uncontrolled stuff like that. So that's gonna help. Then you have to find a good embouchure. Usually don't bring your mouth too forward. I see a lot of beginners that go like because I think some people think it's a bit like whistling. Whistling, you bring your lips forward, you go. But if I do this with my flute, nothing comes out. So the flute, it's closer to the teeth, you know? So there's that. Then what you can do if you already play is try to find your best note. Your note that you feel is your best note. Go look in the mirror, and that position should be pretty much your position throughout your register, all the registers. It's very, very minute differences, you know. It's not going to be completely different from when you play in a low note or a high note. So I would say start with that. And let's say you say, okay, my best note is G. So you play, and you listen to it, okay? And then from there you go by semitone, you go down. And you try to keep that same quality, and you can look in the mirror, you know, have a mirror, and you can focus on that. It's that can be an exercise, you know. It's all about being aware, finding your good sound. When you get a bad sound, look and try to make it worse and figure out what you're doing. This way you know that, do the opposite, you know. When we crack a note, when we have a bad sound day, it's all a teachable moment, you know. Those things help us learn. We shouldn't see them as necessarily bad things in themselves, you know. It all depends how we react to them. So yeah.
Last question was Caesar wants to know, is there a method to tune the third octave C?
You mean this one?
Yeah, probably.
Or this one?
I don't know. They didn't respond yet.
Because like for me, third octave C, like this one is first, this one's second, this one's third, and this one's fourth. But if you mean the fourth, I think you can put your pinky on the B key. If you have a B key, like here, you can play it like this.
Oh, the highest one. The highest one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah. So you can add that. I think that's it's the one that usually people use. So yeah, it should lower it a little bit, and then there's the whole, like, the way you blow it is gonna have an impact. If you blow a bit lower, then you open a little bit and you direct the air a bit lower, it's gonna help you lower that note as well. And don't overblow it, you know. Sometimes we are scared of, because it does require some type of energy, but maybe not in the quantity of air, but in the air speed. So think air speed more than quantity of air. It's going to help you too. That's it? Well, that's nice. So thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful for you. And you can go and get my album and music on musicgy.com. There's also my flute methods that are there, and we'll be adding more. And thanks for everyone who support us. And you can also go on our Patreon. On our Patreon, we have all our videos with no ads, and then you get to be our patron, and we appreciate that a lot. And also, is that it? Yeah, I also give lessons online, so you can email us at info@theflutechannel if you want information about that. And if not, just follow us and like our stuff and subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Thanks so much.